Kale Riven had seen many planets in his life, but nothing prepared him for Astraeon, the homeworld of the alien empire known as the Dominion. When his ship passed through the clouds, he felt as if he had entered another universe. The sky glowed with moving colors, shifting like liquid light. Mountains shaped like giant crystal pillars rose from the ground, reflecting the twin suns in bright silver flames. Kale stood near the viewing window, unable to speak. He was a simple envoy, not a hero or explorer. He never planned to travel to such a strange world. Yet here he was, representing the Terran peace envoys, hoping to stop another war between humans and the Dominion. The shuttle landed on a floating platform made of translucent stone. When Kale stepped out, the platform lit up under his boots, glowing soft blue with every step. The air carried a sweet, metallic smell. Felt light, almost too easy to breathe. A group of towering armored guards waited for them, the Varan Sentinels. Each guard wore shining armor shaped like overlapping scales. Their helmets had long curved horns, and their eyes glowed faint gold. They did not speak. They simply nodded and motioned for the human envoys to follow. Kale felt very small walking beside them. As they moved through the palace bridge, he tried to stay calm. Hard, but necessary. Every second on Astraeon felt unreal. The bridge stretched over a sea of fire-like mist, swirling orange and red below. Strange birds with wings made of glass-like feathers flew in the air above. Their wings chimed like bells whenever they flapped. Kale whispered, "This place is alive." None of the humans answered. They too were overwhelmed. At the end of the bridge, the palace came into view. The Crystal Palace of Queen Zalara Vale. The palace was a massive tower made of shimmering crystal, almost transparent, yet glowing from within. Thousands of floating shards circled the structure like stars caught in orbit. Each shard reflected a different memory, a different time. Kale could see moving images inside some of them. Battles, coronations, ancient rituals. Memory crystals. One human whispered behind him. Holograms? Or something else? Kale didn't know, and he wasn't sure he wanted to. The Varan Sentinels stopped at two giant doors taller than a starship hangar. They pressed their palms against the surface, and golden waves spread outward. The doors slid open silently. The main hall stunned Kale even more. The floor was smooth like glass, but warm under his feet. Golden lines moved across it like veins of living energy. Tall pillars twisted up toward the ceiling, each one filled with glowing liquid that flowed in slow spirals. Above, the ceiling was open to the sky, but covered by an invisible force field that shimmered when touched by falling crystal dust. Tiny pieces drifting from the upper structures like snow. Kale had never seen beauty so strange. The air changed suddenly, growing cooler, heavier, almost electric. And that was when Kale felt it. Presence. Sharp. Powerful. Watching. He didn't have to see her to know she had entered. Queen Zalara Vale. The sentinels fell to their knees instantly. Even the human envoys stopped speaking. Queen Zalara walked into the hall with slow, confident steps. Her height was greater than Kale expected, easily over 7 feet. Her skin shimmered like polished silver mixed with soft violet tones. Her eyes glowed bright blue, as if 2 stars were burning inside them. Her crown was not made of metal. It was a floating ring of thin crystal shards circling her head, humming with soft sound. Zalara did not speak at first. She simply looked at the humans, her gaze moving across each face. When her eyes reached Kale, he felt something like a spark run through him. She paused, just for a moment, but Kale noticed. Then she stepped forward and spoke in a voice that echoed across the hall, deep and melodic. "Welcome, Terran envoys. You stand in the heart of my dominion. I am Zalara Vale, sovereign of the Astraeon throne." Her words were smooth, yet carried a force that made the air vibrate. The human leader walked forward, bowing slightly. "We thank you for receiving us, Your Majesty. We come in peace." Zalara's eyes softened only a little. "Peace," she repeated. "A fragile thing, easily broken." Kale watched her closely. She was graceful, disciplined, and terrifying, like a blade forged from light. But something inside him whispered that she was more than a ruler. There was depth in her eyes. Something lonely. Something ancient. Zalara began walking again, her long cloak gliding across the glowing floor. As she passed Kale, her gaze flickered toward him once more. Why him? He was not a diplomat. He was not a warrior. He was just an analyst assigned to record the meetings. He didn't even know why he had been chosen for the mission. But Zalara's eyes stayed on him for a heartbeat longer than expected, and Kale felt the air shift, as if the palace itself reacted to her silent interest. Envoys, Zalara said. You will be given chambers. Tomorrow the discussions will begin. The Varan sentinels gestured for the humans to follow. Kale turned to leave with them, but then he heard Zalara's voice behind him. You, stay. Kale froze. Every human turned back, surprised. Zalara wasn't looking at them. She was looking only at him. Kale's heart pounded. The envoy leader spoke nervously. Your Majesty, he is simply an assistant. Zalara raised one hand. Silence filled the hall. I know who he is, she said calmly, and I wish to speak with him. Alone. The other humans exchanged confused looks but obeyed. The sentinels guided them away until Kale stood by himself in the massive hall. Zalara slowly approached him. Her presence felt like standing next to a powerful storm. Kale swallowed hard. Your Majesty. Why me? Zalara tilted her head slightly, studying him with eyes that seemed to look directly into his soul. The throne chooses who it wishes, she said softly. Sometimes without reason, sometimes with purpose. Kale did not understand. Not yet. But in that moment, in the heart of the crystal throne world, his fate changed forever. Kale Riven followed the Varan sentinel down silent crystal corridors, his heart beating fast. The palace felt alive. Its walls glowed with soft light, pulsing like the slow heartbeat of a giant creature. Every few steps, floating crystal shards spun gently overhead, whispering in a language he couldn't understand. He didn't know why Queen Zalara had chosen to speak to him alone. He didn't know why she had looked at him with such strange intensity. He only knew one thing. Nothing about this was normal. The sentinels stopped in front of a tall silver door. Strange symbols flowed across its surface like liquid metal. Enter, the guard said. His voice was deep but emotionless. Kale hesitated. This is? The Queen's private chamber, the sentinel answered. Kale felt his throat tighten. The Queen's private space? Humans were not allowed there. Even her own people rarely entered. Before he could ask anything else, the door slid open by itself with a soft sound, like a breath. The guard stepped aside. Kale had no choice but to walk inside. The chamber of the Queen. The room was like nothing Kale had ever seen. It was circular, with walls made of glowing crystal that changed color slowly. Soft purples, gentle blues, warm golds. A pool of shimmering water rested in the center, floating inches off the ground without touching the floor. Soft mist rose from it, making the air smell like strange flowers. Hanging above the pool was a massive ring of light that spun silently. Inside the ring, shapes formed: stars, planets, galaxies. It looked like the universe itself was being displayed inside her room. Kale stared at it, breathless. Then he heard footsteps. Queen Zalara entered from a side door. She was not wearing her armor. She was not wearing her royal crown. Instead, she wore a simple gown of pale light that flowed around her like water. It made her seem less like a ruler and more like a living star. For the first time, Kale saw her not as the queen of the Dominion, but as a woman. A powerful, ancient, mysterious woman. Zalara walked closer, her eyes glowing softly. You look afraid, she said. Kale straightened himself. I wasn't expecting this, Your Majesty. You may call me Zalara when we are alone, she said. Her voice held no anger, no danger, only calm strength. Kale swallowed. All right, Zalara. A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips, so slight he almost missed it. You are different from the others, she said, circling him slowly like she was studying every detail. Your energy, your mind. I sensed it the moment you stepped into my hall. Kale felt heat rise to his face. I'm just an analyst. There's nothing special about me. Zalara stopped in front of him, very close. That is where you are wrong. Her eyes glowed brighter, and the floating crystals around the room reacted. Shifting, humming, spinning faster. Kale felt something strange in the air, like invisible threads pulling at him, connecting him to her. He stepped back slightly. Why am I here? Zalara walked to the floating pool and placed her hand above it. The water rose up and formed an image. Kale standing in the palace hall, looking stunned. You came as part of a peace mission, she said. But your presence is a sign. The throne reacts to you. The crystals shift because of you. That cannot be ignored. Kale blinked. React to me? Yes. She walked closer again. The throne world chooses certain beings. Rarely. Once in centuries. And it has chosen you. But why me? Zalara's gaze softened. That is what I want to understand. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the soft humming of the floating crystals. Kale finally said quietly, If I've done something wrong, you have done nothing wrong. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But you have awakened something in this palace, and in me. Kale's breath caught. He didn't know how to respond to that. Zalara raised her hand and lightly touched the side of his face. Her fingers were cool and soft, leaving a faint trail of energy on his skin. Kale froze. This is not a place for lies, she said. I want truth. He met her eyes. What do you want from me? Connection, she said softly. Understanding. A bond. Kale took a step back, confused. A bond? With me? Zalara watched him carefully. In my culture, sharing a moment of closeness binds two beings. It is not simple desire. It is a decision of fate. Kale felt his pulse racing. He looked at her, not as a queen, not as a warrior, but as a woman who carried a world on her shoulders. And he felt something too. Fear, curiosity, and something he couldn't name. Zalara stepped closer again. The crystals responded, glowing like stars at sunrise. You do not have to answer tonight, she whispered. But I ask only one thing. Stay here with me for a short while. Kale looked around. The room felt warm now, safe, almost gentle. Still, he felt trapped between fate and fear. Zalara sensed his hesitation. She lowered her hand. You are free to leave my chambers, she said softly. But if you choose to stay, everything changes. Kale inhaled slowly. The universe inside the floating ring spun faster, as if reacting to his heartbeat. One step forward meant entering a world he didn't understand. One step backward meant disappointing a queen who had never revealed her vulnerable side to anyone. Kale finally said, I'll stay for now. Zalara's eyes softened, glowing faint silver. Good, she whispered. Then let the night begin. The floating crystals dimmed, the lights warmed, and the chamber closed itself around them, sealing their fate in a silence that was deeper than space. And on that night, the first bond between a human and the Queen of Astrayan began. 3 days passed after the night Kale spent inside Queen Zalara's private chambers. Days filled with silence, confusion, and thoughts he didn't dare touch. He woke each morning in his guest quarters, unsure if what happened had been real or a dream shaped by the strange energy of the palace. Astrayan itself felt alive, whispering through its crystal corridors, watching him with invisible eyes. Kale tried to keep busy with the other Terran envoys, helping organize the peace discussions. But every time he walked past the palace hallways, the floating shards glowed differently, brighter, warmer, whenever he passed. As if the palace recognized him. As if it remembered. The Terran leader noticed his distracted mind and asked if he was all right. Kale lied and said he was fine. But inside, he felt the weight of something huge, something he could not explain. He had not seen Queen Zalara since that night. Until today. The summoning. It happened during a meeting with Astrayan advisors in the main negotiation chamber. Kale was quietly taking notes when a Varan sentinel entered, his armor shimmering with a sharp red light. the symbol of a royal command. All voices fell silent. The sentinel pointed at Kale. You. The queen summons you to the throne hall. Immediately, Kale's heart jumped. The Terran leader spoke nervously. Is something wrong? The sentinel did not even look at him. The sovereign speaks only to the chosen. The chosen. That word again. That impossible, terrifying word. Kale followed the sentinel through the glowing corridors. The air felt heavy, as if the palace itself sensed what was coming. The throne hall doors opened with a sound like distant thunder. And Queen Zalara sat at the center, silent, still, watching him with eyes that burned bright blue. She dismissed her advisors with a wave of her hand. The sentinels stepped back. The hall emptied until only Kale and the queen remained. The silence was so deep it hurt. Kale finally forced himself to speak. Your Majesty, why did you call me? Zalara rose slowly, her silver-violet gown flowing like smoke around her. Her crown of floating shards hummed softly, reacting to her shifting emotions. She walked down the steps of the throne with calm, controlled movements. But Kale saw something else in her eyes. Fear, anger, confusion. Kale Riven, she said softly. I bring you news that will change everything. Kale felt his stomach twist. What news? Zalara stopped a few feet from him. Her voice lowered, but the hall amplified every word. There is new life inside me. Kale froze. He didn't understand at first. His mind refused to process her meaning. New life? He repeated. I don't. Zalara's gaze sharpened, glowing brighter. A life created from our bond. A hybrid. A child. Kale felt the air leave his lungs. No, that's not possible. Humans and your species were not compatible. Zalara's voice grew stronger. Yet it has happened. Kale stepped back, shaking his head. Every part of him felt cold. Your people must be mistaken, he said. Your medicine, your tests. Maybe something went wrong. Zalara's expression changed. The light in her eyes intensified until the entire hall glowed with blue flames. You doubt my knowledge of my own body? She thundered. The crystal pillars vibrated. Floating shards cracked with sparks. The entire palace responded to her rising emotion. Kale raised his hands, terrified. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. Zalara's voice stormed through the hall. You did what no male of my species has achieved. You ignited the ancient spark. You awakened the dormant lineage. She took a deep breath, forcing her voice to soften. You are the father of the heir to the Austrian dominion. The words hit Kale harder than any weapon. Father, dominion. He felt the world slipping away. I can't be part of this, he whispered. I didn't come here for this. I'm just a visitor, Zalara. I have a life back home. I have a duty to my people. Zalara's face hardened instantly. And what of my people? What of the child carrying both our blood? Kale trembled. I want to leave. The hall fell silent. Zalara's expression changed. Slowly, dangerously. Her anger returned, sharper than any blade. You want to leave? She repeated quietly. Kale nodded. I never asked for this. I never wanted to become part of your throne, your politics, your destiny. He spoke too quickly, the fear in his voice too obvious. Zalara's eyes narrowed like two burning stars. You think you can walk away? She asked. Kale backed away again. I need to return to my ship. I wasn't meant to stay. Zalara raised her hand sharply. The throne hall doors burst open. 20 Varan sentinels marched in, weapons drawn. Their armor gleamed with crimson signals, the symbol of absolute command. Kale felt his heart stop. The guards surrounded him. He looked at Zalara with panic. What are you doing? Zalara stepped closer, her voice low but filled with power. You are bound to me now, bound to the future heir, bound to the throne. If you leave, Kale Riven, you do not only betray me. Her hand rested on her stomach, glowing with a faint silver light. You betray the life growing inside me. Kale felt tears burn in his eyes. This isn't fair, he whispered. This isn't my world. Zalara's voice softened, not with kindness, but with something deeper. You changed my world, and now fate has changed yours. The sentinels tightened their circle. Kale had never felt more trapped, or more important. The throne world hummed around them, as if announcing a new destiny. A destiny he never asked for, but could no longer escape. Kale Riven could feel the weight of the throne hall pressing down on him. The echo of Queen Zalara's words still rang in his ears. You are bound to me now, bound to the air, bound to the throne. His mind raced. He had never been trapped like this before. He had never been tied to a destiny he didn't choose. He took a step back, then another. His eyes darted to the throne hall doors. Beyond them lay the corridors he had walked freely before. Beyond them lay his ship. Beyond them lay his life on Terra, the life he wanted to return to. He would leave. He had to. The first attempt. Kale bolted toward the doors, heart pounding like a war drum. The Varan sentinels shifted instantly, forming a perfect barrier. Their weapons hummed with energy. They were silent, unyielding, unstoppable. Stop! Zalara's voice rang out, calm yet full of steel. Kale froze. The queen stepped closer, her silver-violet gown flowing like liquid light. Do you truly believe it will be that simple? She asked. I have no choice, Kale shouted. This isn't my life. I didn't ask for this. Zalara's eyes narrowed. She raised her hand. A pulse of energy radiated from her, and the sentinels shifted closer. Even their glowing weapons bent slightly toward him, as if the palace itself recognized her command. Kale stopped, chest heaving. He could see the crystal shards above shimmering faster, reacting to the tension. The entire throne hall seemed alive, warning him that escape was impossible. Zalara's power unleashed. Zalara walked to him, each step resonating like the toll of a bell. You are no longer just Kale Riven, she said. You are the father of the future ruler. Leaving now would be betrayal. Betrayal of me, and of the life inside me. Kale shook his head, panic rising. I didn't ask for any of this. I came here as a diplomat. I came in peace. And yet, Zalara's voice softened but remained firm. Fate has chosen otherwise. She raised both hands. Light poured from the floating crystals and swirled around her. The air grew thick with energy. Kale felt his legs tremble as though the palace itself were binding him. You are bound to this palace, she said. Bound to me, bound to the throne. You will not leave. Kale realized the truth. No amount of running, no plea, no argument could break her power. A dangerous decision. He backed away slowly, eyes darting to the doors again. His mind raced. There had to be a way, some crack in her defense, some weakness. But Zalara's gaze was unyielding, pierced him, reading his every thought, anticipating every move. She knew his fear. She knew his desperation. She knew him. Kale's heart pounded. Sweat ran down his face. The air was charged, humming with tension. Every crystal shard seemed to watch. Every pillar seemed to breathe. I can't stay here, Kale whispered. I don't belong. I don't. You belong? Zalara interrupted softly, yet every word struck like a hammer. Not by choice, but by destiny. The blood of my heir flows because of you. The future of the Dominion depends on you. Kale's stomach twisted. He felt trapped, not just by Zalara, not just by the palace, but by fate itself. He was part of something enormous, something he could never undo. The standoff. Kale clenched his fists. I won't be your pawn, he said. I won't be forced into this. Zalara's eyes glowed brighter. The floating shards responded, spinning faster. You are not a pawn, she said calmly. You are a father. You are part of the future. You have power now, even if you do not understand it. Kale's mind raced. The palace was alive. Zalara was more than a ruler, and he had nowhere to go. Fear surged, but somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark, a tiny flame of defiance. He took a step forward, trying to gauge her reaction. The palace vibrated with energy. The sentinels tightened their circle. He realized, if he made a wrong move, he could be struck down in an instant. A glimpse of fear. For the first time, Kale noticed something in Zalara's expression. A flicker of hesitation. A glimpse of fear behind her power. She was angry, yes, and commanding, yes. But she was also human in some way, despite the alien majesty. She feared losing him. Kale's mind raced. Maybe he could reason with her. Maybe he could escape. Maybe he could find a way to survive this without defying destiny completely. But before he could act, Zalara stepped closer, calm but terrifying. The light around her shimmered, forming a faint shield. "Kale," she said, her voice soft yet unbreakable. "Do not mistake my fury for weakness. I can destroy you, yet I choose to speak. I choose to guide you." Kale felt his knees weaken. He realized that brute force was useless. He could not outrun her. He could not fight her. He could only choose accept this new reality or risk everything by defying fate. The realization. Kale's eyes darted around the hall. The pillars, the floating shards, the throne itself. They all seemed to pulse with the queen's will. He took a deep breath. The truth hit him harder than any weapon ever could. He was trapped, and he had no choice but to face the consequences. Yet, even in fear, he felt a strange connection to Zalara. Something in the way she held herself, something in the power that radiated from her, drew him in. He did not understand it, but he felt it. A tether between them, stronger than any door or weapon. Kale sank to a nearby crystal bench, trying to steady his racing heart. Zalara did not advance. She did not retreat. She simply watched, waiting, allowing him to process the truth. "You see," she said softly, "you cannot leave, but you can choose to understand. You can choose to become part of the future. Or you can resist and break nothing, but remain trapped in fear." Kale closed his eyes. Trapped in fear. He had never felt so powerless. He had never felt so alive. And in that moment he understood. His life was no longer just his own. It belonged to the queen. It belonged to the throne. It belonged to the child growing inside her. The palace around him pulsed with power, and the night outside began to glow with the twin suns of Astrayan. Kale had tried to escape, but he had nowhere to run. And he knew he had never been more connected to destiny than he was at this very moment. The throne hall shimmered with an unnatural light. The crystal pillars vibrated softly, yet Kale Riven felt the air around him grow heavier, charged with energy he could not control. His heart raced as he stared at Queen Zalara Vale. For hours, he had been trapped in a whirlwind of fear, confusion, and awe, and now her anger was coming. The warning. Zalara's eyes glowed like molten stars. Her hands hovered above her chest as if gathering power from the air itself. The floating shards twisted and spun faster, casting reflections that danced across the walls in jagged streaks of light. Kale took a step back, realizing the true danger of her presence. He had seen the queen command armies, but this was different. This was raw power, personal and dangerous. "You still do not understand," Zalara said, her voice calm but laced with fury. "You cannot leave. You were never meant to leave." Kale stammered. "I'm not trying to defy you. I can't be part of this." Zalara's hands shot forward, and the shards around her spun violently, creating a soft, humming wall of energy that pushed Kale back slightly. The crystal floor beneath his feet glowed brighter, reflecting the rising tension. "You think this is your choice?" she shouted. "You think your fear matters?" Kale's chest tightened. He could see the power radiating from her, almost like invisible flames licking the air around her. The Varan sentinels stood behind her, motionless, but the faint glow of their weapons mirrored the queen's anger. The power of the throne. Zalara stepped closer. With every movement, the palace seemed to respond. Floating shards darted toward her. Pillars hummed, and the pool of shimmering water in the center rose higher, reflecting twisted images of Kale's fear. "You cannot escape," she said, her voice low but dangerous. "The throne chooses. The bloodline chooses. And you, Kale Riven, are bound to both." Kale felt his knees weaken. He had always been a calm, logical man, but the queen's aura of power made him feel like a child in front of a storm. "I don't belong here," he shouted. "I'm not ready for any of this." Zalara's eyes narrowed. A pulse of energy shot through the hall. The floating shards glowed white-hot, and Kale felt a force pressing him down. He stumbled backward, nearly falling into the glowing pool. "The life inside me, the future of the Dominion. Your presence is part of it." Zalara's voice echoed through the hall. "You awakened something that cannot be undone. And now, you will not walk away." Kale's pulse raced. He realized this was no longer just a warning. This was the full weight of the queen's fury, and he had no shield, no escape, no advantage. The shards react. The floating shards above began spinning faster, colliding with one another in bright flashes. They emitted a low, resonating hum that vibrated through Kale's chest. The walls of the hall seemed to bend toward Zalara, reflecting her anger in every facet of the Crystal Palace. He tried to reason. "Please, calm down. I'm not your enemy." Zalara's laughter rang out, strange, melodic, and terrifying at the same time. "Enemy? No. You are more than an enemy. You are part of the throne's future. And yet, you still wish to flee." Kale's hands shook. He knew she could destroy him without touching him. The air itself obeyed her commands, the shards dancing like soldiers ready to strike. "You will stay," she said softly, almost tenderly. "Not because I demand it, not because my guards force it, but because your fate is tied to mine, to the child, to the Dominion. And it always was." The emotional unleashing. Zalara's eyes softened for a brief second, showing the emotion beneath the fury. Kale noticed a flicker of vulnerability, the first sign that the mighty queen was not invincible. "I am afraid," she admitted, her voice almost whispering now. "Afraid that you will leave. Afraid that everything we have started will be destroyed. Afraid that the future, our future, will never come to be." Kale's breath caught. He had never expected to hear fear from someone so powerful. I didn't choose this either," Kale said softly, realizing for the first time that the queen's rage came from love, from protection, from something he could understand, though he did not yet feel it himself. Zalara's gaze softened, yet her energy still radiated like wildfire. "Then understand this, Kale. You cannot leave. Not now. Not ever. You are bound to me, to this palace, and to the life growing within me." Kale's mind raced. He had tried to resist. He had tried to escape. But he realized now that the queen's rage was not simply anger. It was warning, protection, and demand all at once. The realization of power. He stepped back, heart pounding, and looked around. The hall pulsed with power. Every crystal, every shard, every pillar answered to her will. Even the Varan sentinels, perfectly trained soldiers, seemed like extensions of her body. Kale swallowed. He understood at last. He was powerless here, and yet, the moment held a strange fascination. The queen's rage was terrifying, yes, but it was also awe-inspiring. It demanded respect, even obedience. "You see now, Kale?" Zalara asked, her voice a mixture of fire and silk. "You cannot leave. You are part of something greater than yourself. Something that spans generations, worlds, and bloodlines. You are not just a man. You are the father of the future." Kale felt the weight of her words pressing on him like gravity. He wanted to resist. He wanted to run. Yet, deep inside, a spark of understanding began to grow. He was bound to her, bound to the throne, bound to a destiny far greater than himself. And the queen's rage, though terrifying, was not destruction. It was warning, it was guidance. It was the first sign of trust. A temporary calm. Zalara lowered her hands slowly. The shards floated back into gentle patterns. The hall dimmed slightly, but the energy lingered, humming through the walls and floor. Kale fell to one knee, catching his breath. He was exhausted, terrified, and yet strangely alive. "You must understand," Zalara said softly, stepping closer. "This rage, It is not for you alone. It is for the future, for the throne, for the child that now carries the blood of both our worlds. Kale nodded slowly, the reality settling in. He had tried to escape. He had tried to deny his fate. But the Queen's rage had made one thing clear. He could not run. Not now. Not ever. The Crystal Palace hummed around them, alive with the energy of an empire and a destiny beyond comprehension. Kale Riven realized he was trapped. But for the first time, he also realized something else. He was part of something greater than himself. The Queen's rage had unleashed more than power. It had awakened his own sense of responsibility, fear, and connection. And the future of the Austrian dominion now rested in the hands of two beings bound by fate, blood, and something neither fully understood yet. The throne hall had returned to a fragile calm, yet the air still hummed with the energy of Queen Zalara's rage. Kale Riven sat on a crystal bench, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. He could feel the weight of what had happened pressing down on him, the anger, the power, and the undeniable truth that he was now tied to a future he had never asked for. And yet, he could not leave. He lifted his eyes and found Zalara standing several feet away. Her expression had softened. The fire of her rage had dimmed into a controlled glow, but there was still tension in her posture, a quiet warning. She was powerful beyond imagining. Yet beneath that power was something else. Something human. "You understand now," she said, her voice low and measured. "You cannot run from this. Not because I demand it, but because fate has chosen otherwise." Kale swallowed hard. "I understand, but I still don't know how to feel. This isn't my world. I don't belong here. I don't." "You belong," Zalara interrupted, her eyes locking on his. "Not just to me. Not just to the throne. You belong to the life that grows inside me. You cannot leave it behind. You cannot abandon it." Kale looked away, trying to process the truth. The throne, the child, the queen herself. It was all too much. But something inside him stirred. Something unfamiliar. Despite the fear and confusion, he felt a pull toward her. A bond forming in ways he could not yet comprehend. The first understanding. He remembered the night in her private chambers, the way her gaze had held him, the way her presence had made the air shimmer. That connection had not been fleeting. It had grown stronger, binding him in ways his mind struggled to define. You frighten me," he admitted quietly. "And yet, I feel drawn to you. I don't understand it." Zalara's lips curved slightly in acknowledgement. "That is the bond. It is not just power or blood. It is trust, connection, the spark between two beings chosen by destiny. You may resist it, but it will not fade." Kale clenched his fists. "I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't even know how to be a part of your world, let alone this future." She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "You do not need to understand everything now. You only need to accept that we are connected, that you are a part of what will come. One step at a time, Kale. One moment at a time." A glimpse of humanity. For the first time, Kale saw Zalara as more than a queen. She was still regal, still terrifying, still powerful beyond imagining. But she was also human in her emotions. Afraid of losing him, afraid for her child, afraid of a future that was already written in part by their connection. Kale's voice caught. "I never imagined something like this. A human, tied to an alien empire, to a throne, to a life I didn't choose. And yet, I can't deny that I feel something. A bond. Stronger than fear." Zalara's eyes softened further. "Fear is natural. So is hesitation. But the bond, it cannot break. It is forged by fate, by choice, and by the life we now share." Kale nodded slowly, realizing the truth in her words. He had tried to fight it, to escape it, to deny it. But every attempt had failed. He had been drawn closer, not by force, but by something deeper. An invisible thread that tied him to the queen and the child they were creating together. The power of the connection. As he spoke, Kale felt the air around him shift. The floating crystal shards responded, spinning gently, glowing with a soft light. The palace itself seemed to acknowledge the bond forming between them. Zalara extended her hand toward him. "Step closer, Kale. Accept the connection. Feel the thread that binds us. It is not weakness. It is strength." Kale hesitated for a heartbeat, then stepped forward. As he drew near, a warmth spread through him, a strange energy that made him feel alive, focused, and safe. The fear that had gripped him began to ebb, replaced by a growing understanding. "You feel it, don't you?" Zalara asked. "The bond is real. It is stronger than distance, stronger than fear. It binds us, now and forever." Kale swallowed hard, feeling the reality of her words sink in. "Yes, I feel it. Stronger than anything I've ever known." A moment of mutual understanding. They stood in silence, connected by more than words. The palace seemed to hum softly around them, as if acknowledging that two lives, one human, one alien, were now intertwined. Kale finally spoke, his voice steady. "I may not fully understand what this means yet, but I see now that I cannot walk away. Not from you, not from the child, not from what fate has placed in my path." Zalara's eyes glowed softly, a mixture of relief and quiet pride. "Then you are ready to face the future, Kale. Together we will navigate this path. We will forge a bond stronger than any fear or doubt." For the first time, Kale felt something resembling hope. He realized that his connection to Zalara was not a prison. It was a responsibility, yes, but also a strength. It was a bridge between two worlds, two species, and two lives destined to change the galaxy. The bond sealed. The palace seemed to respond, the crystals reflecting a warm, gentle light. The floating shards spun slowly, casting patterns across the hall that mirrored their connection. Kale felt the bond settle within him, a quiet, unbreakable thread linking him to Zalara and the child within her. He looked at the queen and, for the first time, spoke without fear. "I will not abandon you. I will not abandon this bond. I will face whatever comes. As part of it. As part of you." Zalara stepped closer, resting her hand lightly on his shoulder. "And I will not abandon you, Kale. Together, we will face what destiny has chosen. Together, we will protect the future of the Dominion and our child." The weight of their words, their understanding, and their bond settled over them like a quiet storm. The throne hall no longer felt threatening. It no longer felt like a prison. Felt like home. A new beginning. Kale Riven had come to Astraeon as a visitor, an outsider, an envoy from a distant world. He had faced fear, anger, and the overwhelming power of a queen who ruled an entire empire. He had tried to escape. He had tried to resist. And now he understood. He was bound not by chains but by destiny. The bond between him and Zalara Vale could not be broken. It would guide them through the challenges ahead. It would protect the life they now shared. And it would shape the future of two worlds. Kale took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of peace amid the uncertainty. He looked at Zalara, the queen of the Astraeon Dominion, the woman whose rage had terrified him, whose power had crushed him, and whose bond had saved him. The future was uncertain. The path was dangerous. The challenges were unimaginable. But together, they would face them, bound by fate, bound by trust, bound by a bond neither could break. And the first thread of a new, uncharted future began to weave itself through the crystal corridors of the throne world. The throne hall was quiet now, but the air still shimmered with the residue of power and emotion that had surged through it over the past days. Kale Riven stood near the center of the room, the weight of destiny pressing heavily on his shoulders. He had tried to run, to resist, to ignore the path the queen had forced upon him, but he had learned something crucial. Fate could not be avoided. Zalara Vale approached, calm yet resolute. Her presence was both comforting and intimidating. The bond between them, once invisible threads of connection, now pulsed like a living force, anchoring Kale to the palace, to the queen, and to the life growing within her. "Kale," she said softly, her eyes glowing with a gentle silver light, "the future is no longer yours alone. It is ours. And yet, it is uncertain, dangerous, full of challenges we cannot yet see. Kale swallowed hard. I know. I understand now that I cannot leave. But what comes next? What must we do? Zalara's gaze drifted to the crystal pillars surrounding them, as if seeking counsel from the palace itself. We prepare. We protect. We shape what we can. The Astrian dominion faces threats, internal and external, and the child we carry represents a new path. A hybrid future, stronger than either of our worlds alone. Kale nodded slowly. He had spent nights trying to imagine what this life would be like, how he would fit into the Queen's world. Now, seeing her stand before him, he realized that the unknown was no longer frightening. It was a challenge he was willing to face. The weight of responsibility. Zalara reached out, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. Kale, you are not merely a father. You are part of the throne. Your decisions, your courage, your strength, they will influence the entire dominion. You must accept this, not as a choice, but as necessity. Kale looked into her eyes and saw the vulnerability beneath the regal exterior. The fear of loss, the uncertainty of a mother carrying the future of her empire. I will try, he said quietly. I will do whatever is needed to protect the child, to protect you, to protect this bond. Zalara smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and pride. That is all I ask. That is all the throne requires of you. For the first time, Kale felt a sense of purpose beyond himself. He had been a visitor, an observer, a diplomat, but now he was a participant, a guardian, a father. The path ahead was unchosen, yet unavoidable. A glimpse of the future. The floating shards above shimmered, reflecting faint images of possibilities. Kale could see flashes, galaxies in conflict, starships in battle, allies and enemies alike. And amidst these visions, one constant remained. The bond between him and Zalara, unbroken and unwavering. We will face challenges, Zalara said, her voice low, almost a whisper. Some will test our bond. Some will threaten the child. Some will demand sacrifices we may not yet understand. Kale stepped closer to her. I'm ready, he said firmly. Whatever comes, we face it together. I won't abandon this bond or you. She reached out, resting her hand over his heart. A warmth spread through him, not just physical but emotional, anchoring him in ways he had never experienced. Together, she repeated. Always. The choice to accept destiny. The palace seemed to acknowledge their decision. The crystal pillars glowed softly, the shards spun in gentle arcs, and the air felt alive with energy. Calm, protective, yet powerful. Kale understood now that the throne world was not merely a structure of stone and crystal. It was a living entity, responding to the connection between its queen and the father of the future. Kale took a deep breath. I know this path was not chosen by me, but I accept it, not because I have no choice, but because I believe in what we are creating, in what we are protecting, in what we can become. Zalara's eyes glimmered. And I accept you, Kale, not merely as a father or a participant in this future, but as a partner in shaping it. The child will carry the blood of both our worlds, and through that bond, we will ensure a future stronger than any one empire could create alone. For the first time, Kale felt hope. The fear, the uncertainty, the desire to escape, all of it had been replaced by clarity. His life was no longer solely his own, yet he felt a strange freedom in that truth. He was part of something larger, something eternal, facing the unknown. The twin suns of Astrian began to rise in the distant sky, casting long beams of light through the crystal towers. The floating shards caught the rays and reflected them in 1,000 colors, painting the hall with brilliance. Kale looked out over the palace and saw the city beyond, an empire that depended on its queen, on him, and on the future they now shared. There will be war, he said softly. There will be threats we cannot yet see. There will be pain. And joy, Zalara added, placing her hand over his. There will be hope. There will be triumph. And through it all, we will stand together. Kale nodded, feeling the weight of destiny settle into his shoulders, but not as a burden. Rather, as a responsibility he was ready to embrace. "Then we face it together," he said firmly, "as a bond that cannot be broken." Zalara's eyes glimmered with quiet pride. "Yes, a bond neither of us can break. And through that bond, the future of two worlds will be written. The unchosen future." Cale Riven had arrived on Astraeon as a visitor, an envoy from a distant world. He had faced anger, fear, and unimaginable power. He had tried to escape, to deny fate, to resist what was being demanded of him. And yet, in the span of a few days, he had discovered something extraordinary. Fate cannot always be chosen. Destiny cannot always be predicted. But the bonds we accept, voluntarily or not, shape the course of empires, worlds, and lives. Cale turned to Zalara, standing beside her in the throne hall. "I don't know what comes next," he said quietly. "But I do know this: I will not walk away. I will not abandon this bond. I will face whatever the future holds for you, for the child, and for the Dominion." Zalara placed her hand lightly on his chest. "Then the future is ours to protect. The unchosen future, bound by trust, courage, and love. Together, nothing can break it." The palace around them seemed to glow brighter, alive with the energy of two beings who had accepted their shared destiny. The shards reflected not just light, but the promise of a future forged from connection, courage, and unyielding will. Cale Riven exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility and the strength of the bond that now tied him to Zalara Vale and the life they shared. The future was unchosen. It was uncertain. It was dangerous. And yet, it was theirs, bound by fate, bound by love, bound by a bond neither could break. The throne world hummed softly around them, the crystal pillars catching the first light of Astraeon's suns, and Cale understood, with a clarity he had never known before. This was only the beginning.